Hi everyone, good afternoon. This is the CISO monthly mentoring call. So we got lovely Sanjika and Naz Ali joining us as speakers, and we got Didar, one of my moderators.
Hello.
Uh, so, so we're going to be talking about second line and first line teams mainly, but we're going to introduce the two speakers first. And just to give you about bit more about the CISO project, it's a mentoring platform and a give back project to get more people into cybersecurity. There's high emphasis on getting more females into cybersecurity, and we got a structure of a 5-day boot camp, quarterly meetups, and monthly mentoring calls. So this is one of the monthly mentoring calls we run on every third Tuesday of the month, and everyone's welcome to join. Just email us on info at sorry, I can't even say my email. So it's info at cheesysoexec.org. And I'll let so my name is Chani, by the way, for those of you who don't know me, and I work as a cybersecurity consultant, and I'm also the founder of CISO platform, and oh yeah, I'm the managing director for Meta Defense Labs. So that's kind of my day job. And I'll let you introduce yourself, Dida.
So I'm Didar. I do cybersecurity and risk. I've been doing 10 to 11 years, usually in financial institutions. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for letting me co-host.
Thanks. So we got Sanjika. Would you like to introduce yourself, Sanjika?
Yeah, I'm Sanjika. I currently work as the General Manager Information Security, and I'm in charge of information security, quality management, and business continuity at Sri Lanka Telecom.
Yeah, Sri Lanka Telecom is the only telecom company in Sri Lanka, isn't it? The government-led.
Yeah,
You want to tell us a bit more about what Sri Lanka Telecom is for those of you who don't know?
Yeah, Sri Lanka Telecom is the national service provider in Sri Lanka. We have got several service providers, telco providers, but Sri Lanka Telecom is the government-owned. Government has like 48% shares of the company. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Would you like to would you like to tell us about your background, how you got into cybersecurity, and a bit more about your current job role, please?
Yeah, actually, when I first started my job, I was assigned as the engineer for international switching. So I was doing mostly like quality assessments on the international calls. And then I got promoted to the IT department, and I was in charge of the systems. They are like mainly the applications, HRM system and all that, finance system and the inventory system. And then I was assigned, apart from that, I was assigned for network security. And that's how I started my information security career, actually. So when I was engaged in network security, there was a new CITO who was appointed, who was from Australia, actually. And he started this information security initiative. And since I was handling network security, he got me involved in the project. And we started with developing an information security policy for Sri Lanka Telecom. So that was in, I think, year 2004. So we had to engage a consultant for that. And with the consultant, we developed an information security policy, and then we published that. So that is how we started implementing information security in Sri Lanka Telecom. So after that, we thought we will go for actually it was BS 7799 at that time, the standard. So we thought we will implement that. So we started with our data center, and we implemented that and got the certification in 2006 Then we expanded the certification into other areas like our ISP, then our IP network and the access network. And then we migrated it to the ISO 27001 certification. And slowly we started expanding our certification to our IT group and then our power and AC and the other areas. Now, actually, I was assigned under CEO, so it was very easy for me to carry out my work because I had the authority to do whatever was required. So now I handle, I am the general manager, that I am in charge of information security, business continuity and quality management. So quality management also came under me because now I am more conversant on the ISO 27001 standard, and then quality management also has the same structure.
Thanks. Dada, you want to continue?
That's a great title. It sounds very heavy to me.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility considering the size of the organization.
Yeah, and in telecoms as well, it's quite quite a hard job. So I admire you really. So shall we hear from Naz as well?
Yeah.
About your background, your current job, and how you came about doing cybersecurity.
Sure. So thank you again. Thank you, Chani, for inviting me. It's humbled. So my title, I'm information security lead for a first line security team within a big four professional services firm in the UK. So my team's responsible for making sure that we build technology securely, so applications that we then host for our clients and with our clients' data, and then making sure that environment is also run securely, and then making sure that we comply to our internal policy and things, our external certifications like ISO 27001, Cyber Essentials, and our regulatory requirements, for example, GDPR. So a bit of background about myself. So I graduated in 2005 in Business Information Technology, which was a 4-year degree course, and had a 1-year work placement at Reuters. And it was after I graduated, I looked around to see what programs were available and what kind of work was available for myself. And at that time, I didn't really understand what I wanted from an IT career. So I applied to various roles. And fortunately, I was offered a graduate placement with the firm I'm with today in 2005, which was a 2-year graduate program working in their internal IT services team. It was a rotational, so I worked in different parts of IT, so messaging, you're looking at network operating systems, networking, even procurement. So a wide variety of experience in those 2 years, working to understand IT service delivery. Then in 2007, I had the option to actually specialize in networking or network operating systems. And I chose network server operating systems because that's what interested me at the time. So then I spent a couple of years developing and learning, working on technology such as VMware, Citrix, Active Directory, and obviously Windows operating systems. And then around 2009, I got an opportunity through a contact I had in the client-facing part of the professional services firm. And that was a 6-month secondment to work with a technology team who basically collected data from our clients, processed it, and then presented that data for a secure remote access solution. So it was kind of a mini IT team, but it was client-facing. And that's when I started taking more of an interest in information security, because as you can imagine, we were holding a lot of client data and we were providing that over the internet for a remote access solution. So our clients were naturally quite interested in how we protected that data. So then from over time, then I developed, and from about 2011, I took on more of a lead role, focusing on information security. And I kind of fell into the role because no one else in the team was doing this. And I had a passion around security, and then I took it from there. So I guess there are three areas that how I got into information security. One was working with our clients, regularly to assure them how we protected data. 2 was then designing the controls to protect their data. And 3, we had an ISO 27001 maintenance program, and I assisted with that, making sure that we've got the controls, processes, and then evidences available for our external auditors. And then in 2014, there was a more formal opportunity to lead the InfoSec team in first line, which is the role I'm doing today. And then I started building out the capability, put together a strategy to say, look, how can we grow this capability? Because it can't just be run by myself and a few others part-time. And then built out a true first line of defense security team, covering our sort of security architecture, engineering, security operations, and InfoSec risk management on a day-to-day basis. We also cover first line information security culture development, which is working with our second line team as well. And over time, I've got promoted in the process as well. So my role today mostly covers leadership, so driving a team through our objectives, protecting our clients' data, driving cyber hygiene. Big company, a lot of complex technologies. One of the biggest things to get the foundations right, and to go along with that is driving our culture as well, information security culture. Because I'm a big firm believer of making sure that we've got the culture in place, because it's not just about the technology and the processes. So that's a background about me. So hopefully that answers the route I've got into in security and what I've been doing.
Yeah, a very nice journey you had.
Yeah.
Just before we move on, I want to put our disclaimer there that the views on this call are our own and does not represent our employees. So let's move on. And I also want to remind people, if anyone wants to ask a question but they don't want to interrupt the speaker, we have the chat area, and you can ask your questions there and we can revisit them.
Yeah. Thanks, Ness. So I used to work with Ness, so that's how I know Ness very well. And since then, he's been contributing and helping us a lot with the give back projects that we've been doing. So it's lovely to have you, Ness, here, and Sanjika also. She was one of the participants who supported the CISO. So it's good to have you both here today. Thank you.
No, thank you.
And I got a question for Sanjika. In your journey, what kind of help did you get to progress in your career, like sort of like mentoring and coaching side? And what do you think helped you most to progress in your career?
When I think of my career, at the initial stage of our implementation, a consultant was involved. So I got a lot of help from them, because they actually taught me everything that was there about risk assessments and information security and security policies and all that. So that's how I started, because I learned a lot from them. They were engaged for like 4 years with us. Wow. And they worked alongside me. And with that, I got a lot of knowledge from them. And that helped me a lot in carrying out my work. And also, I was new to this area and I was just a junior. And I had a big responsibility. And it helped me in building up my confidence, because I was working directly under our CEO. And even the CEO did not have any idea of what was required to be done. So, but he also helped me a lot. And whenever I went to him with certain problems, he used to help me. So that's how I actually started this.
Did you have, apart from the consultants at work, did you have specific mentors that you used and guided you?
No, I had only the consultants with me, and I used to read a lot on the things I didn't know, and I used to fill the gaps with that.
Wow. Thanks. I think
Didar,
you, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for Naz. Yeah. If you were to give yourself a career advice, your 10 years younger self, what would that be? And if you have any, do you have any career regrets?
Okay, good question.
To Naz, this one's for Naz.
Cool, thank you. It's a good question. So I'll probably go beyond 10 years because I've been in the same company for the last 10 years. I'll probably go back, say, to 2005, maybe, so go back 14, 15 years in terms of giving, what would I give myself as career advice? And it's probably the same advice, say 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's believe in myself a bit more. I was less confident than I am today, and that could be because it's my first role in a sort of a large organization, etc. But the advice I'd give is just believe in yourself a bit more, and maybe I could have achieved more in a quicker time period, and show my true self. Because over time I've come to realize, and for various reasons, that being yourself is important, and bringing your own character to work, because that then demonstrates who you are and demonstrates authentic leadership, which I think is important as I've grown into a leadership role. So that's sort of career advice. And if anyone else is starting off on their career, is believe in yourself, because confidence is one of the good, and it is difficult. And then touching upon a previous question, is make sure you get good coaches, good mentors, because those are the people who can help you in your career. In terms of career regrets, I'll probably say no career regrets. Obviously, I've got career advice to be more confident, but I've been fortunate enough to have grown and developed my career in one place. And yes, there's been setbacks, and there's been things that I think actually things could have gone differently or could have handled differently, but that's all just part of learning and building your resilience. So, and building who you are, and that's built me who I am today. I don't have any real career regrets.
Thanks. Good to hear.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of us who choose this career, they all enjoy. So even I don't have any regrets joining. I think it's a fun industry to be in, and very interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. Keeps us on our toes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you address diversity in your teams? So I'll go with Naz first on this one, because I'm going to ask that same question from Sanjika as well. But Naz, how do you address diversity in your team, and how does it help you?
Okay, so I guess I'm fortunate to say I'm from a BAME background, and that makes me see things in a certain way. And the way I've approached diversity as I've built my career is make it part of everyday working. So not make it seem as something different. It's just be part of the way you do things. Specifically, I can give some examples around how the team is addressing how I've kind of promoted more of a diverse and inclusive team. So, for example, one of the pieces in cybersecurity or information security is the skill shortage. So one of the things I'm quite passionate about is building the next generation. So I'm always looking at opportunities and bringing people in. And quite recently this year, we've had 3 or 4 people where we've provided work experience from people who, from a social background, may not have the same opportunities as others. And also making sure that there's a conscious focus on female and neurodiverse talent coming into the team. And it's not just bringing people into the team, it's also presenting and participating in recruitment events. In terms of putting diversity and inclusivity into action, some of the things that I do with the team is asking people for the views, regardless of their position. It doesn't matter if they're someone who reports into me, someone who's a junior. It's all about that inclusivity, because everyone has their own perspective, and those opinions all make us as a better team. And then from a sort of inclusivity perspective, it's making sure, and it's the small things that really count. So, for example, in a meeting, I may notice someone who may not have spoken. So it's making sure everyone has a voice, actually asking that person, do they have anything to contribute? Sometimes just someone wants that prompt, and that's how we can get that diverse and inclusive sort of viewpoint in meetings. And it's those things that help. That's what I've done to address diversity in my team.
Thanks. What about you, Sanjika?
Yeah, fortunately, I have had a lot of experience in different areas. So with that, and also the other thing is like in telecom, we don't recruit people for information security. We recruit engineers, and then from those engineers, some of them are assigned to my department. So then I have to look for special skill sets in different people and their knowledge. And then based on that, I assign jobs for them. And then through that, I try to develop them in their specific skill area, as well as develop them in the weak areas by giving training. And that is how we have managed actually. And I have found that it has been very fruitful, because the engineers have developed to a certain extent, and I always help with whatever gaps they have, and teach them on the areas where they lack knowledge.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Mm.
So
And,
you
and,
feel,
and, and Chani,
sorry, go on,
Chani, I
Ness.
just wanted to add, just something else that triggered in my mind, if I may. One of
Yeah,
the
sure.
other things I do with the people in my team, it's not just me, as I set goals for my team is around how they can drive diversity. So as part of performance development, making sure that everyone else is brought into having a conscious way of building diversity into the ways of working and inclusivity. So it's not just me, it's making sure that people also contribute within the team as well.
Yeah, sure. I think it's everybody's responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ness and Sanjika. I've got a question for Sanjika. We talked about emotional intelligence, and how do you build emotionally intelligence workforce? What kind of areas do you look at in terms of building emotional intelligence at workplace?
When it comes to emotional intelligence, I used to get very emotional when I was young. When I started my career, because I had to deal with all the top people in our company, and I used to get really upset sometimes because of their attitudes.
You're
Because
not alone.
I was a very junior person, and so when they become arrogant, I used to be very upset, and slowly I managed to cope up with that. So when it comes to my staff, I always support them in their ideas and the way they work, and when they have problems, I always help them to build up their confidence. And also emotionally, I think they also manage to cope, because I am always there to support them.
I think it's really it builds your confidence when you know your manager supports you and back you up. I think that I've seen
Yeah,
that a lot at
yeah,
workplace. It's a management responsibility and everyone's responsibility, to be honest. But
Yeah,
when you know you have a manager who supports you and back you up and doesn't tolerate that kind of negative behavior, I think it really helps.
definitely. That was what built my confidence up.
Mm.
I had one manager who believed in me so much. He trusted me more than I trusted myself. So that has really made me a much more confident person.
Yeah, I think that's probably where something that we've all gone through. I mean, I've had so many instances where you have a lot of upset and um, emotions going through because your manager said something or did something, and then you feel helpless. But yeah, I think it's a learning curve, and experience make you stronger, I guess.
yeah.
Exactly. Sanjika, I have a question for you. Are you more in the first line of defense or second line? Where would you put your teams, or are you dispersed in all areas? In the first line or the second line? Risk, are you also doing risk and compliance, or is that your responsibility more in the first line of defense?
I am also involved in risk and compliance. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess second line, isn't it? More like second line.
Yeah.
I'm also on the second line, and I want to ask you this: how do you make sure your communication with the first line teams in security is effective? How do you communicate with them? How do you collaborate with them?
We have a management structure where we have different management structures. We have a top level management where we have do reviews on the implementations and the information security status, and also there is a middle level management. So we always go and represent those committees, and we help them to sort out their issues, and if they have any knowledge gaps, we discuss with them and train them. So then they build up their confidence as well and support us in our endeavors as well.
Is there first line teams in doing security in the company, or are you trying to upskill other people to support you in the area?
No, they are from the company actually, because we have a lot of platforms, like ISP is a different platform, and then we have our data centers, and there are different teams. So they manage the security. So we support them to comply with the security policy as well as do risk assessments, and then we do audits on them. So with the audits, we help them to improve their systems.
So you manage the overall risk assessment in the company, I guess.
Information security and business continuity risk, yes.
I see, okay. Dada, you want to continue?
Yeah, I want to ask a similar thing to Naz as well, and we know he is in the first line. So how do you keep in line with your second line of defense security teams? What's your communication like with them?
And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think it's the one, how do we build a relationship is through communication. It's regular dialogue. So it's not just at my level, it's everyone at the different team level as well. So obviously I maintain a leadership level communication with the team, but that's both verbal and email so communications, and making those communication lines always open. But also the people who work for me, and then obviously the people who work for them as well, is making sure that we build relationships at each layer, because that's the way we can work together, and that's communication. And also making sure that that communication is open and honest, and don't be afraid to speak up. So for example, I have fortnightly catch-ups with the second line team. We're part of the sort of internal information governance forums, and it's all about building a relationship, and then through those relationships you can then have informal discussions which can then help both second line and first line as part of delivering our activities. And ultimately, from an end customer perspective, which is our internal business users, we need to be seen as one team, and that's one of the things I try to foster both with my team and also with the second line, is let's see what we can do as seen as a united front, because if there's a difference between second and first line, it just that won't work. And so it's about building those, understanding where those issues are, where those challenges are, and then to help this, we use a lot of MI, we use a lot of facts, because to support your arguments and opinions is not just saying that I think it's this way. It's actually I think it's this way because of X, Y, Z, and here's the information from the first line perspective to support my arguments, and that's the way we can help develop the sort of relationship.
Nas, do you also get involved, get the second line teams involved when there's an incident or a breach? How often? What would be the process that you would adopt?
So if there's an incident, it's mainly around, it's not during the incident or as part of the sort of response or containment. It's more around the lessons learned. So how do we feed that back into our second line team for the forums, whether that's a fortnightly catch up, whether that's through the monthly sort of forums, i.e. what are the key lessons learned, what are the key themes are we seeing from our incidents? Is it a control issue, is it a people issue, etc.? So that's when the second line will get involved, i.e. what are the lessons learned from those incidents?
Yeah, and then they can implement those controls if they're missing or if there's any gaps, right?
Of course, all change, if we need to change policy, do we need to, and that's where the second line team will then look at from a policy perspective.
True, yeah. In terms of how do you approach building policy and governance framework for your company? Because I know there are so many best practice frameworks that are out there. How do you customize them, and how do you choose which governance framework that you would use for your policy, Sanjika, in your organization? I know you have a big background on policy and governance. I thought this would be a good question for you.
Yeah, when we started out with the policies, we had a lot of resistance. So I think it is very important that we implement the policies so that it fits into the culture of the organization. So when we brought out an internet policy, we had to restrict a lot of sites because there were some concerns from the management to restrict some sites. So when we did that, we had a lot of issues with our unions. We have a lot of unions, and they started a big campaign on this. But then we slowly explained to them as to why we need these policies in place and all that. So with that, we didn't actually implement a strict policy initially, but then slowly we started implementing stricter policies, but we started small. And now I think we have a better structure in place, and also the policies we slowly strengthen. And also depending on the incidents that happen, we incorporate all those lessons we learn to the policies. We implement certain policies.
Yeah. Do you review your policies often as incidents happen, or do you do that annually?
We review the policies annually, but if there is an incident and if we see that the policy is not good enough, we go and review it at that time.
It's interesting you mentioned unions, something that I've never thought of, to get resistance from your unions. Is that blocking Facebook and social media?
Yeah, initially we had to block Facebook, not because of security reasons, actually because of productivity
Yeah, I
issues.
can imagine.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were playing games on Facebook. So once around and he saw a lot of people playing games, and he wanted to stop that. So I was the culprit who was caught because a lot of people said I am the one who is doing all this. So anyway, I had to do it because it was my job.
Yeah, I think it happens when you try to put new controls in. Everyone starts hating you.
Yeah.
I think all the information security professionals face this.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, it's us being more clear on our communications. I think enabling them to work better, but also telling them the reasons as to why you have to do certain things and to stop certain ways. Because at workplace you're not there to play on Facebook. You're there to do work and be more productive. I think so. Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, tough job.
Yeah.
So I have another question for both of you guys. So we know the information security area is huge, and there's so many new things every day, so many news, so many new vulnerabilities or new breaches, and many things. How do you keep current? How do you keep on top of the things? Let's start with you, Sanjika.
Yeah, I subscribe to a lot of magazines, and I keep like 1 hour per day to read on current news and current trends on technology, because telco is also growing very fast, and we have to take care of not only the IT area, but then the telco side also. We need to look at all the information security problems that are there. So because of that, I need to keep up with the technology advancement. But then it's very difficult to do that. But still, I manage somehow to like follow webinars that are there, and then read magazines and all that, so, to keep up with the changes in technology.
Great. Do you listen to podcasts?
Not that much.
I started this year, and now I'm a bit addicted, I think.
I sometimes have so I feel like 1 hour is still not enough, because you
Yeah.
have to allocate now time for social media, and then to your day job, plus then to keep up. It's like very challenging and impossible sometimes.
Yeah.
Naz, how about you? How do you keep on top of things?
So it's a lot. Sorry, it's a lot of things, a number of things. So just go through some of those. And I like the idea of 1 hour a day. It's difficult, but I think it's really good that you're doing that, Sanjika, and that's something I'll try to implement myself going forwards. But things that I'll do is things like industry events. So try to attend as many as I can, and obviously need to plan these quite well in advance. So things that recently I attended a Gartner Security Risk Conference. So attending industry events, which is always important. Events like the Chani organised the CISO meetup quite recently. I think those are good events as well. Meeting like-minded peers and professionals. I use LinkedIn a lot. You didn't pay me for that. LinkedIn is good as well. LinkedIn is really good. So a lot of articles, again, a lot of good posts, a lot of, again, networking with peers and professionals. Vendor articles. So I spend a lot of time on the move between meetings, etc. So on the mobile phone, it's always good to get an alert from a vendor, whether that's, say, for example, a firewall vendor, or whether it's one of the cloud vendors, things like that. Maybe NCSC as well. News alerts, so the big sort of news websites. Also speaking to my staff, so often they're much more closer to things than myself, because actually seeing things happening. And they've obviously got a subject matter expert, whether that's a threat hunter, whether that's someone who's got malware specialist, whether that's someone's a log specialist. They would often then keep me updated as well, and learning from them. And then when I do get a chance, and that's sometimes in evenings or weekends, is self-researching. So recently I've been learning about Kubernetes, and I want to learn a bit more about Kubernetes, is go into blockchain. It's a big buzzword everywhere at the moment. I just want to understand more around the technology. So self-researching, so spending some time to learn about that. And over time, although I do less of this now, but in the past, it's just doing formal training courses. So I'm lucky I'm working with a company which supports you with a business case to then do training and learning. So put some formal submissions in to get training from professionals. There's quite a lot. It's not structured. It's using the best of my time and using the best of the mediums that are available.
Yeah, we all try to do our best, don't we?
Yeah, I think we learn a lot from peers. I agree with Nas also. Going for, especially in London, there are a lot of events that are out there that you tend to learn a lot more from each other than, sometimes reading, because sometimes you can't always remember things. So it's best to ask your mate and say, how do you do this? How do you do that? And then you share knowledge that way as well. You learn quite a lot from your colleagues.
Yeah.
Very true.
I got a question for Nas. How do you keep control of your endpoint devices? So from both asset management point of view and also protection and detection.
Well, firstly, it's not easy. with a large,
Yeah, I know it's a big challenge.
And I think it's really difficult to find anyone. I haven't met anyone yet who's actually said, "No, we've got a grip on our asset management." But what we do is things around a robust onboarding and offboarding process. So that's around making sure when we issue the assets, making sure that when we're given, say, whether that's mobile devices, laptop devices, or anything else that's got the corporate asset value to it, making sure we document those, make sure we've got tracking, who owns them, who's line managers, and also offboarding. So when someone leaves, we know when someone's leaving, it's joined up with the sort of HR processes. So then we make sure assets are returned. If they're not returned, making sure you have an asset management team that then follows up on that. Because it's not just an information security issue, it's also sort of a financial issue, because you want to make sure that those devices are returned from a cost perspective as well. So that's linking in, making it more than just an information security issue. And then from a control perspective, is putting as many sort of controls as we can without hindering the end users. For example, recently we're looking at disabling services not required, like USB ports, and that was through a big sort of discussion with our business around why we're doing this, and then there's an exception process to allow people who don't actually have a genuine need to do USBs. I don't know. I haven't used a USB for a long time. A lot of it's storage, network storage, cloud storage, so it's kind of made logical decision to do that. And then, as well as the technical controls, it's the user awareness. So it's basically telling people to and the guiding people how to protect their devices. And not just in a work context, but also from a personal context, because people don't just have work assets, they have home assets as well. So it's making it personal to them. And then from a work perspective, it's also given the consequences of what happens if you're not protecting assets. So it's educating the user base on that side.
Sure.
Well,
I think we're
yeah.
reaching the time also. I think one last question for Sanjika, maybe, Didar.
Okay. So we know you are a very successful woman and you have come to a really top place. But what could have your male colleagues have done to help you and support you in your journey that you wish they did, maybe you didn't see much of?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
So what can a man do to support you more in your day job? Your male colleagues.
Male, there were some who helped me, and there were some who really obstructed the work I did. There were more people who I think didn't like a female doing the job, because even when I was assigned to CEO for information security, the first thing he said was, I don't know, appointing a female for this job, whether I will become a laughing stock. So I was also, I didn't have that confidence at that time. But then I thought, I will show him that I can do it. So, and anyway, he helped me a lot, because he was my boss, and then I needed a lot of help at that time. So I think in that way, he was very good, although initially he said that. After that, a lot of people actually didn't like a female doing this job.
Yeah, not easy. Not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think how if you were to train your male staff, give one piece of advice in promoting having more females and working with them in a more friendlier way, what would you say to them not to do? Like,
What do you mean?
say for example, if I'm training a person, and if I'm saying, we are all about promoting diversity and having more females in the workplace and having,
Yeah.
50-50. So I would probably say, don't be a caveman, if I'm being very blunt. because you need to support and work with each other, not look at women in different way. So what
Yeah.
similar advice would you give to your female colleagues who hasn't supported you?
I think I have shown them that the females also can work like them. And when it comes to my subordinates, I treat all of them equally. I had two female engineers and two male engineers. So I did not treat anyone special. So I treated them equally. And they did not have any problem of like my being a female. But then my superiors or the top level people had the problem. Uh, that I
They're
think,
biased.
yeah.
Yeah, it is a challenge at a lot of places where, you know, people still are treating women differently. I think we
Yeah.
just need to learn to treat everyone like human beings. Start at home, I guess.
Very true.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience? We got about 7 minutes left. I can unmute if you got any questions. I think you can unmute yourself. I know you guys are on mute. I have a question here. So I know your title isn't CISO, but you're pretty much doing a lot of the jobs a CISO would do. What would you say are your biggest challenges? If Nas could answer that, and then Sanjika could answer that, that'd be good, I think.
Sure. So from my perspective, I would say there's a lot of challenge, but I think to make it simpler and clearer, I think that I want to concentrate on one, which is probably keeping up with our technology delivery teams, because they are obviously wanting to do things quickly, and we want to make sure that they do it safely. So ultimately, we need to work together to do it in a safe, quick manner. We don't want to stop the business. Ultimately, they're helping the business to do things quickly, make sure that we're aligned to our market. So I think that's the biggest challenge, because technology delivery wants to do things quickly, and we need to make sure that we enable that, and we're part of that process. That's the biggest challenge for me.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree with Nas. Actually, when it comes to telecom, our sales team wants to go to market quickly, but then we cannot allow that because we have to do the security testing before we allow any product or service to go to market. So we have to work really hard, and that is challenging sometimes, because you need to look at all the aspects to make sure that there are no security holes or major security incidents with regard to the products and services we put out.
Thanks. We got another question. So a lot of the conflicts, going back to conflicts management side. So a lot of these conflicts happen because of ego and lack of confidence in people. What are your thoughts on these, and would you address these as leaders in, how would you address these as leaders in the industry? Nas, maybe you can answer this.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about relationship building, is communication. So as a leader, one of the things that I quite important and drive within my teams, and also people who we work closely with, who may not be my team, is that culture where people can speak up. And I know people may not have the confidence, some people may not have the confidence to speak up. So it's having those mediums and avenues where people can. So for example, something that we've got within our firm is a safe people that you can go to. They're kind of called champions, who people can now go to. And this wasn't always in the past, it's only quite recent, where people can go to speak to independent, away from your day-to-day line management, etc., where they can just have a conversation in a nice, closed environment where they can raise things. And I think that's important, having those safe people that people can speak to. from a leadership perspective, for me, it's making sure that other leaders who I work with know that this issue exists, because I think this issue exists in most organizations, if not all organizations. Firstly, recognizing it exists. Secondly, is to make sure other leaders know that it exists as well. And then they are putting things into action to make sure that they put things in motion to address these elements. And I think we need to have a culture of calling out where behaviors are not great. And then once things have happened, is then making cases. It's actually, this is what's happened. Someone raised it, making people aware that this is the action that's taking, because then that would then encourage more and more people. And then what I do, and then we speak about confidence, lacking confidence, is also building that confidence as well. So I engineer sort of small, safe environments where my team can then help develop their soft skills like presentation, etc. So then at least they get empowered from a self-confidence perspective.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Sanjika?
With ego, I don't know, in our company, there is a lot of bureaucracy, and because of that, it's very difficult to deal with them. But then most of the time, I try to show them that this is a difficult job, and that we have to somehow make sure that the company has to keep up with the industry, and that we need to keep everything secure. And that is how I have managed to tackle their ego problems. And most of the time I'm too outspoken, and when they say things, I get back to them, so then they get angry. But then that's how I am.
You build emotional resilience throughout the years.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, we often talk about building emotional resilience on CISO platform. I know Jackie was here. I think she had to drop off. She is our emotional intelligence coach, and it's all about building. I mean, what we stand for is to building emotionally intelligent cybersecurity leaders.
Yeah.
How do you think that business leaders could adopt and promote EQ at workplace? I think if people are more emotionally intelligent, and especially they need to understand what their emotions are, and they need to understand other people's emotions. I mean, if they can do that simple things, I think a lot of the conflicts can be resolved easily, and or doesn't even exist in the first place. What are your thoughts on how we can address this as businesses? Nas, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I think, touching upon what you've just said, I think the main thing is making people aware of their emotional intelligence, or EQ, and then once people are aware of that, is where they consciously need to develop. Providing that emotional resilience, or emotional intelligence sort of training to your staff as well. So leaders should be encouraged to then drive people on that area. It's not just about the technical skills, it's that the soft skills as well. I think one thing that I employ is getting feedback from staff, and this is not just feedback from people who I work for, it's also people who work for me, and also peers as well, because I think the more you can get that insight from different people, and it's often people who I know will have strong views, which is important, because that will help develop someone. I think diversity is important. And making sure people are aware that sometimes it's okay not to be okay. So, and then making sure they get support, and you have that support framework in place. I'm a firm believer of that having been there for people and always being available as a leader, because that's part of your role.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, everything starts with people, isn't it? Machines can come later, but people are your should be your strongest link. I think
you should always make time as a leader to develop your people.
Yeah. I mean, we learn about ourselves and about other people's every day, and something new every day. So I think that should apply to everyone. I think we are running out of time. So any messages to the wider audience, Sanjika?
I have come a long way from where I began, and I think whatever obstacles that are there, you need to overcome them and build up your confidence. And I have managed to survive in this male-dominated industry. And I think what I would like to say to all the females are, don't give up. Because I never wanted to give up. And this is an interesting field, and I think I feel that I got into a good field where there is every day there is something to learn, and you should never stop learning, because there are a whole lot of things that you need there is to learn.
Thanks. I think they say that what doesn't kill you make you stronger. You're a perfect example. Any thoughts, Nas?
Yeah, I'll support the learning development. So I've come, like Sanjika, I've come a long way from when I was a graduate. And I think that message around believing in yourself links into that piece around don't give up, have confidence in yourself, never stop learning and developing, because it's important. And the message is every interaction, everything that you do, whether that's an email, whether that's a work item, whether that's a conversation, use every activity as a learning point, because you'll learn something in everything, and just keep pushing yourself, and ultimately have a passion for what you do. So like you saw earlier, my career didn't start in information security, but something twigged, and I had a passion. So once you have a passion, whether that's information security or anything else, just use that passion and drive yourself.
Thank you. Didar, do you have anything for the wider audience to say?
Yeah, love yourself. It's like this is one life we have, so we need to be more gentle to ourselves. And we learn it, I think, later, because we're all hard on ourselves, but we should remember from time to time just to ease it off and show compassion to ourselves.
Thank you. I think it was a fantastic session. Thank you all. Sorry, I'm sad we are running out of time. But yeah, keep joining us. And like I said, we're going to be running this call every third Tuesday of the month. And if you know anybody who wants to join these calls, or who wants to participate, let me know, or just email info@CISOexec.org. And we will add you to the mailing list. And yeah, so let's start building a community that support each other. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Chani. Thank you for, and well, take care.
Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye.